The song on here, "Your Eurotrash Girl," is one of my favorites. It's such a sad, sad story about a guy, basically trying to, I guess, backpack around Europe.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to a Thursday Collection Connection. The game is just an excuse to talk about records. I play the game with my brother, Plastic Eric, from the Plastic Soundwave Cult, and you can play along and follow along by subscribing to both channels. It's true. In Eric's last video, he talked about Cracker's Kerosene Hat, a great album. I was a fan of Camper Van Beethoven, so following Cracker was sort of a natural progression for me. Eric mentioned the song Eurotrash Girl, which is my favorite Cracker song as well. And he has sort of an idea, Eric, in his head that I hate long songs. But I don't necessarily. I just hate songs that meander and don't seem to earn their length. But Eurotrash Girl earns every second of its 8+ minutes, and I love it. It's a great song, great sing along, and kind of the apex of the Cracker Barrel, as it were. And so that was an odd thing to say. One thing he didn't mention, I don't know if he was aware or not, is the fact that Eurotrash Girl is not on the vinyl, or even surprisingly, I don't think the cassette version of Kerosene Hat. The last 3 songs are unlisted tracks on the CD. And it brings up a couple of things I wanted to talk about last week with the Verve record, and kind of forgot about it. The question of what does a double album mean in the age of CDs? Albums that, when they were put out on vinyl, needed 2 discs. Sort of the form follows the format, in that albums just got longer as CDs took over, and it was not unusual to have a 70-minute album because CDs could hold that much info, which was more than vinyl could hold on a single disc. And so albums that are technically double albums, but I don't feel like we think of them as double albums in the same way we did when it was clearly 2 LPs. So that was a question that just kind of, it's a thought that I feel like is worth pursuing. I'm not going to pursue it here, but think about it. Tell me what you think. Is Cracker Kerosene Hat a double album? Was Urban Hymns a double album? It's all very strange to me. Anyway, that aside, the method in which the unlisted tracks were presented on Kerosene Hat started with the actual last track of the album, which is included in the other formats. I think it's called High Desert Biker Meth Lab or something like that. And it goes through a couple of empty tracks before appearing. So even though it's the 12th song, I think it shows up at track 15 after a couple silent tracks. And they continue that, and it goes through tracks that are just 2 or 3 seconds of silence, nothing, until you get to track 69, Tee-hee, and that is Eurotrash Girl. And then there are the other 2 unlisted tracks are at track number 88 and track number 99. So it's an annoying one to kind of sit down and listen to without interceding and wanting to just jump ahead to some truly great stuff. Like I said, I think it's their best song, Eurotrash Girl, and it's buried at track 69. And the idea of people playing with format, the kind of tricks that only CDs could deliver, the first thing I thought of then as a connection was, let me see here. They Might Be Giants, Apollo 18, not Apollo 11. Apollo 18, where they also messed with what the CD could do, just sort of the technical aspects of what the CD delivered. And there's a song at track 17 called Fingertips, and the next song called Spacesuit is at track 38. And that's because the song Fingertips is actually 5-minute snippets rather than being of silence. They're of songs, and they explicitly said that it was to play around with the shuffle function on a CD player. So you can listen to what amounts to about a 4+ minute track, I think, in Fingertips all at once if you just play the CD. But if you hit shuffle, especially in a 5 or more CD changer, it'll randomly hit on these little snippets at track 19 and track 20 that are just 5-second snippets of the larger song Fingertips. And so it was designed to fuck with, really, the CD format. And they did it also on another album, and I forget which one it is off the top of my head, maybe John Henry. Another CD trick, and probably the cleverest of the CD tricks, is having a hidden track where you rewind from track 1 to uncover the track, so it doesn't actually ever play unless you rewind to find it. And I've had a couple of discs that I only just found out. Apparently David Gray's White Ladder album had a hidden track before track 1, and I didn't know that before last week. That's crazy to me. But that would have been my third They Might Be Giants record. I don't know that I'm quite ready to triple dip yet. And so I kind of kept digging, and I came at it from the approach of maybe what's an album that I would like to talk about, that I could tie in. And what I came up with there, and this is still not what I picked, was The Beautiful South, Choke, as being the second album, as the Kerosene Hat was the second Cracker album. The second album from a band that the lead singer formed after his original band had dissolved. David Lowery in Cracker, out of Camper Van Beethoven, and Paul Heaton, who went, I think, more by Petey Heaton, in the House Martins, with the House Martins. But that seemed like kind of a lame connection. And so the next thing I focused on was the fact that, I didn't even pull out, you gotta look at the back of my head here for a second. I didn't pull out the Cracker record. How long will it take me to find it? Cracker, Kerosene Hat, right here. Here we go. Kerosene Hat has on it something that they did over and over. On their first album was a very unpleasant looking half-open can of sardines, and they had it be like it was a product. And at first I was looking for something that had a net weight on it, but I couldn't find anything. And so in the end, I went with the thing that was on the other side here, the flammable warning. There's a warning as a gag, but because it's made up to be like a product. I think that was somewhat the cynicism of the time, marketing their band. They say, hey, when it comes down to it, it's all just product. And so I ended up looking around for something else that had a warning on the cover. And here's my actual, I don't know how long we're into this video. I'm just off the cuffing it here this morning. Is Caution Explosive on the cover of the Squirrel Nut Zippers 1996 album, Hot. Now, I knew Squirrel Nut Zippers were an actual product way back in the day, but this made me think that they were firecrackers. They weren't firecrackers, they were candies. Candies with a long history. I don't know that they make them anymore, but if they don't, they made them as recently as a handful of years ago. It's a candy company that's been bought and sold several times. But Squirrel Nut Zippers were an actual product. So this warning has nothing to do with the candy Squirrel Nut Zippers, but everything to do with firecrackers. Squirrel Nut Zippers had a moment in the spotlight with their single Hell, gained some traction. It happened to come right around the time of the swing revival in the mid to late 90s. And so that gained some traction off of that, even though Squirrel Nut Zippers don't make swing music. They're music is more akin to hot jazz, of the sort of earliest recorded jazz music from the 1910s, 1920s. Swing not really becoming much of a thing until the very late 20s and into the 30s and 40s. So I feel like you'd have a difficult time actually swing dancing to their music, but it no doubt sounds old-timey. So it got a bump from that, I guess. It was the right music for the right time. But it's a really fun record, so it sounds like nicer recordings of 1920s songs, even though they're all original songs. They're not doing any covers. It's almost surprising to learn that. But recording is obviously much more sophisticated now than it was to the cylinders that they were recording to back in the day. And yeah, it's got a great opening track, so it's just kind of, hot jazz. You can picture it on the streets of New Orleans, maybe. Got My Own Thing Now is a really hot track for track 1. And Bad Businessman is the other one that really kind of floats my boat on here, in addition to Hell. But the whole thing is kind of fun to listen to. It's super throwbacky. It's sort of like that modern thing. It's something jukebox. I knew what it was 10 minutes ago. I can't think of what it is right now. That actually does do covers, but they turn more recent songs, songs from the last 30 years, into sort of old-timey jazz songs. And postmodern jukebox. That's what it is. Postmodern jukebox. And it's like that, but they're all original songs. And it just sounds like a recording, like a really nice recording from the 20s. But I did notice then while looking at it that going back to my first failed connection to the They Might Be Giants, this one sports another CD trick. The kind of thing that only CDs could do, in that it had video on it. So this was an enhanced CD that carried some video on it, some QuickTime videos, probably terrible quality from the 90s. I didn't even look. I'm assuming it's the video to Hell, but I didn't even look. Yeah, so it's actually connected not only through the warning on the cover, which is my actual connection, but from the fact that it plays with the CD format, things that only the CD format could deliver. So I've gone on way too long this time. It's going to be a super long video, I feel. But I will throw Squirrel Nut Zippers, 1996 album, Hot, the only Squirrel Nut Zippers album that I bought. I don't know that they lasted a whole lot longer. I think they maybe split up in the early 2000s, and then one of the main songwriter guys sort of reformed a version of the band, not necessarily using the original members, and does some touring to this day under that name, Squirrel Nut Zippers. But this version of the band went away after, I think, maybe 2001. And yeah, so Eric, Hot, 1996, Squirrel Nut Zippers, get a kick out of it, and look for a connection. And you can look for Eric's connection on Monday on the Plastic Soundwave Cult. So with that, I said my piece. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.